And so it's very similar with the plants. So you can do the same thing. Like I've done a bunch of dandelion root and realized, that's a little bit too much. You know, like I now have diarrhea. Now I need to change the dosage. And so these are all very personal experiences that can only be dictated by your own relationship with the plants. And so over time, to go back to the plant of ayahuasca and being her voice, I realized that there's many different ways to do that. I have spent time finding my voice and singing in ceremony. I found time being my voice and advocating for the plant and not forcing, but telling people, like, I think this is something that would be really beneficial to you. And then I've also now have found my voice in saying, you know, how many times have you drank this year? And if it's more than 3, like, where's the integration? And I think that it's very important, especially with the Amazon burning and certain things happening. I really believe in the consciousness of the plant, and I really believe that ayahuasca left the jungle for a reason. And she decided that, like, it wasn't someone who was like, I'm going to bring this plant. They thought that, but the plant was like, you're going to bring me somewhere else. And so that plant has spread across the world because it wanted us to wake up and to remember, you know, to remember the other plants, to remember the earth, to remember where we're at. And that's what a lot of these plants are just dictating. They're like, just remember, you know? And I think that, you know, at some point we have to abandon the tools. So in a lot of different lineages of spirituality or connection to oneself, there comes a point in time where every tool that you use now must be left behind. And then you're face to face with yourself. And so I think that the integration process is one of the most important things. For example, in 2017, I was still drinking a lot of ayahuasca, but every time I was in ceremony and at the end, I would be super angry. And I was realizing that, like, I was wasting my time, and ayahuasca was just so pissed off at me. She was like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, you still haven't implemented what I asked you to do. So what are you showing up here for? There's nothing more for me to tell you because you haven't done what I asked you. And then I had a vision quest that year, and I came out of it, and I had this, like, specific schedule that I needed to live by. And I remember my partner at the time laughing at me and being like, ha, you think that that's possible? And I was, like, really pissed off that they laughed at me because I was like, I just came out of this, like, 5 days of no drinking water or eating, and this is what was given to me, and you're gonna laugh. And it took me 2 years to implement it. 2 years to wake up every morning at 5:55, have this specific practice, do this, do that, da-da-da. And it wasn't until I came here and was teaching at Eton in the morning that that schedule happened. And then I was living the mundane and stopping drinking ayahuasca and stopping doing a lot of things and just doing my everyday lifestyle. It took me a while to get there. And there's many other lessons that have been taught to me, and it's the integration, it's the everyday showing up for oneself. And the herbal plants, just to bring it back to the herbalism, they really bring you there every day. There hasn't been a day that hasn't gone by that I haven't ingested some form of plant medicine in the form of tea, tincture, salves, sniffing the plants, meditating with them, being that crazy woman that's like hanging out at a party and I find a plant and I'm like, oh, like the other day I was on the rooftop of Eton at this like CBC Black Caucus, like really intense event. And everyone's drinking and all this stuff, and I found this mint plant, or basil plant, and I went there and I asked if I could have some of the leaves, and I started handing out leaves to people at the party and being like, your breath smells, how about you have some basil? You've been drinking a lot of alcohol, have some basil. And like my family was like super excited. Like I was with my mom. She was like, oh my God, basil, you know? And so I switched the whole party and paradigm in this like party gown, and I'm picking herbs, and I started conversations about that. So the plants are always allowing us to come back to that and the integration is there. And so the one thing that I want to leave with this talk that I'm just intuiting from the plants and myself is that psychedelics is not wrong. I'm not saying any of that. I believe that the other plants are here to help support you in your everyday work and your everyday efforts, and that going on a journey to find the magic in the mundane and the everyday is going to bring you places that you may not have ever been on a psychedelic. And kind of like Idaham was saying, it's like, you know, gracing your asshole with the air. Like, I really love that, because I remember my first experience pooping outside in the redwoods and offering my menstrual blood. I stepped into the redwoods and my moon started immediately, and I was like sleeping, I just illegally sleeping in the redwoods, and it was my first time, or it was my second time, because the first time I went, the redwoods told me that they would call me back, and then I was back. And I wasn't supposed to have my moon, and I illegally slept there, and then the next morning, you know, it was my first time with my like diva cup, and I had to offer my blood to the earth and my poop. And it's seriously a spiritually very profound experience. The first time you do it, you know, you're like searching around, you want to find the right spot. You know, I had to find the right tree. I had to like squat, and it was like, I love peeing outside, and once I pooped outside and did the other aspects of outside, I was like, this is amazing. And then after that, I found that plant. What it was the cedar tree. And the cedar tree led me to my walk with the cedar, that offering, which I didn't know was going to happen, but that happened through my experiences with ayahuasca later. So I just want to just say that, like, the plants are super amazing. They're here to help you integrate. If you have any questions about integration and working with plants, especially if you got a specific message, there's probably a plant that you can work with that will help bring that message to fruition in your life, so that you can, you know, bring that to the world because it's needed. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening to me.
Hey everyone, I know we're running a little bit behind schedule. We just have one more presenter coming up, and then we'll go into lunch. So welcome Jennifer Omolewa, all the way from Detroit, Michigan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, my name is Omolewa, and I'm the owner of Sweet Serenity Company. I'm a massage therapist, I'm a birth doula, I'm a placenta encapsulator, and I assist people with rebirthing themselves through psilocybin mushrooms. So that's where I'll kind of start. Through this work, I've dealt with thousands of people throughout the years. Even through massage therapy, I'm dealing with their circulatory system, cardiovascular system, their hormones, their skin, their muscles, their bones. So I'm just kind of enthralled in the human body and the processes. For me, through this work, through childbirth and through rebirth through the medicine, they're one and the same to me. So throughout my talk, bear with me. I'm Pisces, I'm like water, I'm gonna be all over the place. So some common things with birth are sacrifice, surrender, release, submission, vulnerability, power, force, trust, presence, support, truth, humility, and wisdom. Many of these things for us women come naturally for us through our first blood, through our first menstrual blood. We're already kind of pre-programmed with the divine blueprint for many things. We're co-creators with Mother Earth. So I feel through the medicine work, it's something that women have more of a divine anointing for and over just through our natural connection and, again, divine blueprint with the Great Mother. And again, through the menstrual cycle, it prepares us for birth before we even become pregnant. Let's see. Usually when people meet me on their journey, it's because they're going through the most powerful and divine transformation, whether it's being born, whether it's becoming pregnant, preparing for pregnancy, childbirth, labor, or it's on the back end. Some people, I simply walk into a hotel room to receive their placenta. Or I could be coming to provide childbirth education or breastfeeding education. So it's usually in such a vulnerable, raw, transformative space for individuals, or just a shift in their consciousness and awareness. So usually when you see me, something's about to go down for you, or up, not down, but you know. There's definitely a shift about to take place. I find that mushrooms and the placenta to be an offering from the earth. Without the placenta, there's no humans, you know, and without the mushrooms, I feel that again, it's just another divine. They're one and the same to me. I'm still working on how to articulate that out to others. But yeah, there's just some common things and that they both bring. And with birth, I find that it's very important for birth and rebirth, that it's important that we get out of our heads, that we get into our heart spaces, that we get into our soul spaces, and into our breath space and our breast space. When we begin to take on or embody these processes that are designed by nature to transform us. You know, so stepping out of the spaces of fear. And when we talk about transformation or control, most of us, a common thing with people is I don't want to deal with the mushrooms because I got to be in control. There is no such thing. You know, you don't even have control over your breath. It just is. It just happens. So when it comes to the process of rebirthing yourself through the entheogens, you have to surrender. You have to be open to being completely transformed. There's a such thing called mask of pregnancy, for instance, one of many things. And it's where some women get a black face or a black neck. And it's like, well, I don't want that to happen to me. Well, if you decide to get pregnant, you may get the mask of pregnancy. You may get stretch marks, you know. You may tear all the way through your vagina, all the way through to your rectum. That's something that you have to be willing to sacrifice for. You know, this is a sacrificial experience, so I think it should be respected as such. You know, we tend to be in our headspace trying to figure it out. What does it mean? Why is this happening? When sometimes you just have to allow and trust that the divine is working through you and transforming you to the highest version of yourself. Everything isn't meant to be understood, you know. What came first, the chicken or the egg, the smoke or the fire? Who fucking cares? Who cares, you know? Certain things that are important throughout these process is preparation. You know, a lot of times we just get pregnant, right? But now we're in a space where we can begin to consciously create, as well as, that's the preconception phase. I kind of break down psychedelics in the form of pregnancy, preconception, pregnancy, labor, birth, and then there's the postpartum or integration piece. So some common things that are very important in those spaces are education, of course, but not too much. You definitely need support. It's so much, you guys. I'm sorry. So you definitely want to prepare yourself for what's going to happen to you. So being spiritually led, getting some education, not too much, but just your intuition. Start working on building up your intuition and knowing what's right for you, when, what's a great time. Pregnancy isn't for everybody. You know, there's certain programs around birth and motherhood and Just continuing to tune into your own God self. So with the work that I do, my specialty is individuals and couples as it relates to the psilocybin, because I believe that when you're getting in touch with that God self, that God part of you, that it's not always a group thing. You know, it's something that should be sought after, again, in a sacred way. Yes, you may need people to support you in that, but like I tell the families that I serve, like, I'm just a character in your story. I'm not pushing out a baby today. You know, this isn't my entheogenic rebirth ceremony. This is all about you, so don't even allow me to be a distraction for you. You know, so this day and age with social media or even with modern education, it's like I always say, well, this month we're going to learn about China. Well, how are we learning about China and we aren't there embodying what China sounds like or feels like or smells like, or, you know, just certain natural senses that we have and we're born with to navigate. How are we navigating without these simple things? But because somebody told me to. So as far as entheogenic birth goes, a lot of people ask, well, is she giving women mushrooms while they're pregnant or while they're giving birth? No, I do not. I do not. But I feel if you're feeling innately drawn to the mushrooms during certain spaces in your pregnancy, that you should see what that means for you. A lot of time, the souls that are coming through are requiring us to level up. They are requiring us to use these substances to clear out birth trauma before they come. So with that, I personally prefer people or recommend you taking these substances or going through these rites of passages or initiations into yourself before you become a vessel for these souls, or for many of which we are here to rebirth through ourselves. It doesn't have to be a child, you know. So that's the preconception space and the support space. So you have your partner, you pick your divine partner, and it shouldn't just be anybody who's assisting you in that space or that we co-create with as well. I'm so sorry, you guys. We're designed to do this, you know, and I think for many of the men, sometimes I find that men want to have a wife or they want to have a baby, or even, I won't get into the sexual preference of things, but I think a lot of time it's still that really, really deep connection that's missing from the divine mother, you know. I'm kind of going to give you what I want to leave you with now, and it's that each of us should know our birth story. If you have the opportunity to talk to a parent or a loved one and find out how they were feeling before you were even born, during when they were carrying you, during when your mother had you inside of her womb, because that's when many of our epigenetic impressions take place. So what was she eating, you know, or deeper than that, like, was she being abused? Was she depressed? Was she just low vibrational? Were you even wanted? You know, and how does that affect us 20, 30 years 70 years later as we're showing up, trying to be authentic or trying to be our best selves or live from our God selves, that there are certain foundational, fundamental things that we have to start there. So it may be if your mother isn't around. So I think still through the psilocybin, rebirth is the perfect time to get to know yourself, start over, condition yourself with the right things, the right foods, the right people, the right environment, because you're stepping into a new level of awareness. And again, and I may be piggybacking off of others, but once you go through these divine transformations, again, on the back end, you have to be supported, you have to be loved, you have to be nurtured, and you have to protect the space. So when I deal with people on the, let's say, integration end, it really begins on the preconception space. You know, how you prepare for it and nurture yourself and cultivate everything that you do, that's how your integration is going to come out. So I have a lot of families, again, it's through what we're being taught or not being taught, that the pregnancy is so important. It is. The birth is so important. It is. You're like scared shitless. But the real work is when you have this new, fresh baby that's totally dependent on you for everything. And nature has given us everything we need to sustain it. Breast milk, warmth, love, just the chemical and divine things that we still to this day don't understand what happens between mother and child, or what happens during the birthing space, or why. It just is, Birth stories, it matters. So even with a pregnant woman, I tell them, don't ask everybody about their birth story. And in that space, being careful what you receive into you, because guess what? It may happen to you. It may not. So just being careful, even with psychedelic medicine, like I take it serious. I take it very seriously. It's very sacred work to me, as is birth. Everybody's not meant to be in your birth space. Even some of the babies won't come through until the people that are going to be there are in order, or they won't show up at your birth. It's just not meant to be. But just making sure we're being loved and supported and nurtured in these spaces. And even on the back end, being careful when you share your birth story. You can share it too prematurely before you've even transformed through the experience fully. So again, it does lose its power. It does lose its impact that it was designed to have on you. Discernment is a huge piece in this work. Like I cultivate my own medicine, or there are a group of us that cultivate where we're from. It matters who handles your medicine. It matters as far as even with doctors in regular birth, what are their views about Black women in their bodies, or whatever, your sexual preferences. I deal with many families and people, same-sex, having children. It matters how these people view you. It matters when you open up your divine portal and they're looking inside, they're sticking their hands inside of you, they're measuring. All of that becomes a part of who you are. So it matters who you get your medicine from, how it's cultivated. Let's see. I'll get into, again, now it's male dominated. Who are these white men to tell us how to give birth? Point blank, period. You've never pushed out a baby in your life, not this lifetime. So these are the people, we're going to for everything, and now we're doing it with psychedelics. They can't tell me how to birth a baby, and they can't tell me how to rebirth myself through this medicine, and we shouldn't be looking to them to do so or to educate us on what is ours, So for women, I'll say, like, we were born with a womb. I'm not saying that men don't have one, but we're born with a womb, so we're naturally the keepers of sacred space. So we have to cultivate our own medicine. We have to hold sacred space for other women in our lives to give birth. We have to hold space for the men. We have to, and again, we're giving birth to children. This is what we've been anointed with. So stepping into those roles, clearing out the trauma, clearing out the womb space where there's fibroids, where there's leftover energy from other men, women, doctors, whatever, our parents, and allowing these medicines to get in there and start to break open and transform us and remove all of that which no longer serves our highest good, our highest consciousness, our evolution. So using this tool as a means to take our power back. And the land as well. We cultivate the medicine, but also the earth. We have to pour back into it, offering our menstrual blood, offering our blood, sweat, and tears, back into the earth, which even allows us to have these medicines and to have these experiences, period. So just regaining the respect in this work and allowing it to humble us. That's one of the main things that I personally appreciate about psilocybin is the humility, Like I am just a vessel for healing. I am a vessel for education and awareness for people. I started the Entheogenic Midwife podcast, which is still new and growing, but it's just a divine portal for information and knowledge. I don't know everything. I don't claim to be, but the divine has put me in these most powerful spaces that I never thought I would be in order to be a light for people, to be a source of nurturing or wisdom or love. I don't know why. You know, I didn't choose this path, but I'm so grateful to be able to impact lives and to be able to shift beyond the veil and different areas of consciousness for babies for the ancestors who are not even born yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is some serious work that we're doing, so just kind of stepping up what we're doing, and this is your birth. I deal more in the higher end of psilocybin mushrooms. I'm not your superficial chick by any means. You know, I personally feel that the lower doses deal more with the superficial levels and layers, and there's a process to everything, don't get me wrong, but as far as the true divine transformation, it's gonna take the higher doses. It's gonna take the being broken open. It's gonna take pushing past your fears, your insecurities. Like, I meet the cute petite women all the time. Nothing is wrong with that, but at the end of the day, you're butt naked, you're open, you're wide, like your womb, your earth, your whole everything is open. So I feel honored to hold those spaces for people to be broken open. And I'll get into more stuff later on in the podcast with even being someone who holds space for people. So we need to honor that role that we have and do it from a non-judgmental space where people can get the fullness out of what this work is designed to do. So that's it for me.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and give all of our panelists and presenters a round of applause. That was really amazing. So we are running a little bit behind schedule, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna go ahead and get lunch. If you do have questions that you wanted to ask some of the presenters, unfortunately we don't have time for a Q&A, but if you want